Welcome to Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio with your host, K. William Spencer. This program is geared to help you see what thoughts and or beliefs are holding you back from being your best for yourself and those around you. Your life is only as good as your thoughts. For more information, visit our website at www.ytyrradio.tk. That's www.ytyrradio.tk. Now, here's your host. Hello and welcome to Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio. This is, as always, your host, K. William Spencer. Today, my guest is Belinda Farrell. She is the host of the book, Find Your Friggin' Joy. Okay, that's the way she actually said it to me the first time, and it kind of it set me off. But anyhow, Belinda Farrell is one very happy, very gregarious woman. She has a great story to tell you. We're going to talk about her book at first, and then we're going to get into talking about how she noticed that she was living with a lot of fears, what she went through to get rid of the fears, give you a little bit of a tickler on that. She started into firewalking, and she went into doing movie stunt work in Hollywood. And she ended up with some injuries, whatnot. She ended up learning some ancient Hawaiian healing therapies. And actually, I'm going to let her tell that story as well, but that's going to come in the latter half of the hour. And what she learned and how she healed without drugs and operations and all that. So, Belinda, you're here?
I'm here. Oh. I'm here in California. Aloha.
Oh, all right. Well, yeah. Here in California, aloha. That's great. I like that one.
I bring Hawaii with me.
Oh, there you go. Well, after what you've told me about the Hawaiian ancient healing secrets, yeah, I can see why you would bring it with you. But let's start with your book. Tell us about Your Friggin' Joy.
Well, it all came to me. I mean, I'm not a writer. It was never on my radar to actually write a book. I was a chanter, and I have 3 CDs that, I've been promoting and chanting to people for the last 15 years. And I just never thought, that the book was going to be something that I needed to do. But again, Spirit has other plans for us. And after I had a reconnective healing session, which is the work of Dr. Eric Pearl and the reconnection, it puts you right on your life path. It accelerates you on your soul path. And I just knew at that moment, I was told, you're going to write a book. And so I sat down, and for 3 years it came out and then finally went live on 12/21/12. That was the end of last year, the day the world was supposed to come to an end. My book went live. So I had to think, oh my gosh, there is some meaning for this work and this information to get out there. And I've been so excited to share it and hear back from people that have said that it's changed their life and that they've really finally decided that they have to go inside and they have to do just little tweaking, little processes to forgive themselves and to really get to the present time so they can use their energy to create the new ideas that they've had, because you need action. You have to take action with all of these lofty ideas that you have. And so that's what the book has given them. And, I go around and speak to different groups and go to different book signings and do these wonderful radio shows like I'm doing with you.
Yeah, well,
and it's been exciting. It's been really exciting. And I feel like it's, my purpose to help people out of their suffering if they want to be helped. Not everybody does. I'm just a healer. But I'm like a door opener. I like to open doors, but that person has to walk through the door. So, you just provide the information and take people through different experiences, and then they have the ultimate say It's their free will that gets them to move through and move to a higher level. So that's been, I would say, even part of the enchantment of my own healing, because as I impart this knowledge to others or these opportunities to others, it also reinforces my own healing and that I'm on the right path. Because I need reinforcement too. I'm human like everybody else. It's not always that you're happy-go-lucky, 24/7. We have our moments. I have moments of, depression and sadness and anger, but I don't keep it. I think that's the difference, is that I forgive myself at the end of the day with these processes, and so I let it go. It kind of funnels through you, and then it's let go. So you always start with a blank page, and that's fun.
Let me stop you there for just a moment, or pause you, if you will. There's two things that you said that I'd like to actually, if you will, elaborate on. December 21st, I know a lot of people thought that was supposed to be the end of the world, and of course, unfortunately, society as a whole generally goes for the negative beliefs on anything. People love to gossip. Matter of fact, I forget who actually made the quote. He says, gossip and bad news will make it around the world twice before truth even makes it around the first time.
Wow, that's a really that's fun. That's a fun fact to know.
Well, it is very true. As a matter of fact, when I used to work back in Illinois, when I lived there in the United States, there's a woman I worked with. She had children in high school at the time, and there was a problem that was going on with the school. And this was a school that had several hundred students in it. And it was going on in the whole school. So the school called a couple of people and asked them to pass the message around. Within 20 minutes, people were calling the woman that I worked with to tell her the same news that she had already told everybody else. 20 minutes it only took. Just on telephone calls, and we're talking about in the 1980s, okay? So.
And was it accurate? Was it an accurate account of what you said?
Yes.
Oh, okay, because we used to do just some examples of trying to pass on information to a group and whispering it in their ear, and by the time it came to, let's say, the 21st person, it was completely distorted.
Oh, yeah, we used to do that in college, too.
Yeah. So it's like good news travels, but it gets tweaked a little bit along the way.
Oh, definitely. But that wasn't the real idea that was coming behind it. It was just the fact that in December 21st, it was, according to, as I've studied it, and even being down here in Mexico, it was not supposed to be considered the end of the world. It was the end of a cycle. And
yes.
Unfortunately, that was the tweaking that you were just talking about, people saying, oh, it's the end of the world. No, it's an end of a cycle. Well, that's the end of the world. No, it's not. Okay.
No, but my book went live, so it had to be the beginning of a new cycle.
That's just what I was getting into, is just that your book came out at a time when one age was ending and a new age was starting. And the title, it's definitely a grabber. Find Your Friggin' Joy is, and I want you to elaborate on what the book is about when I'm finished here, but it's that thing of, you came at a very opportune time to be here at the beginning of a new cycle. And many of us, at least that I know, and we're talking about people that are, if you will say, spiritually grounded. Some of them who have no claims to it at all have said during the last couple of weeks of December and the first few weeks of January, people were commenting to me that they felt something that was changing. They didn't always know what it was. Some people were feeling more sense of euphoria. Some were saying that they felt a sense of... it was like a cleansing effect for the negative, so they were feeling something along the lines of anger and stuff like that, and it lasted for a little while, and it passed, and then everybody was feeling a lot better. And they've noticed the changes since then. So you came in at the opportune time, and then also you're talking about teaching and the humanity of it all. And unfortunately, in my experience, people think that once you're into this realm of metaphysics or the spirituality and whatnot, they think that you're just going to be sitting there looking like Buddha all day, and nothing affects you. And it's like you said, we're still human. So yes, we do get angry, we do get hungry, we do need to do this and that, and it's just a different way of looking life and living life.
Yes, no, it's absolutely. Again, we have choices. It's a choice to be happy. It's a choice to stay angry all the time. It's a choice to carry the things from the past. It's all breaks down into where you want to spend your energetic money, your energetic dollars.
Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit more about the book.
Well, again, it's a no-nonsense book. In fact, there's a chapter in there called Sissies Turn Back. It really is for people who want to take, a self-approach into their own healing. And I think that's what we're turning to because, our society is becoming less and less enchanted with the way, hospitals and insurance companies and Medicare and all these other big government-owned operations take care of us because we're getting sicker all the time when you're in this mass care. So it's more about we have to take responsibility of healing ourselves and doing self-care. And so this book is about these ancient Hawaiian secrets that are no longer secret anymore when you actually take part in them. And so you have the recipe in here of how to do the 10 minutes of Ha breathing, which activates your higher self. You have within this book the recipe of doing the cord cutting, which is called Ho'oponopono, which means to make right. And you're actually doing a relationship resolution process, clearing up all the relationships inside yourself, even the one with yourself, the one that says that you're not enough, that you're not worthy, that you're not good enough, not smart enough, you don't have enough doctor degrees to be successful. All of that is just made well again because you forgive yourself for hanging on to that ego perception of yourself. And it really just is a matter-of-fact way of looking at it through diagrams. I have diagrams and pictures. I love visuals. And through a lot of stories, too, of how, that I, moved through my fears and how, again, even a turtle saved me out in the ocean when I was first starting to learn how to swim. And I got panicked and I called for help, and this turtle appeared, and huge turtle, and just told me to stop struggling, to just do what I do. And so I started mimicking the turtle, just moving my arms in the way that the turtle was moving. And he just took me gently over the current, which I was struggling and fighting against, getting nowhere and getting exhausted. And he took me over that current and put me gently on this huge rock structure, and then he disappeared. But he saved my life. And from that example, I realized that you can't fight things. You can't hold on to the way you're looking at things, because when you do, you suffer a great deal. And so once you let go, you let the universe kind of take over, and then the actual thing that's supposed to happen, your health or the benefits that come into you as a reward of that, take place, and you get pushed up to a higher place. It saved my life. And so that's something I'm always grateful for.
You remind me, now you've got me smiling, and for those who listen to my show, when I start smiling is because something resonates. And this is really wonderful because the thing that I'm thinking about is the joke that most people have all heard, and it's told as a joke, but it's actually an example of what you're just talking about with the turtle. Now, a lot of people would probably go, pasha, that's not real, or no, it can't happen that way. many people have heard this, and I've heard it told many different ways, but I'll tell it the way that I remember it. And it's going right along with what you said about with the turtle. There's an old man that lived in a rural area, and he lived in basically a floodplain. It started raining heavily, and the news was telling people to get out of the area because it's going to flood. They didn't see any stopping of the rain. So he's an old man, and somebody came by in a truck and said, "Come on, let's go. It's going to flood down here." And he's yelling out the house, "No, God will save me." So the rain continues to come along, and it starts flooding. So he's praying, and he's going, "Save me, save me." And another man comes along in a boat, a motorboat, and he says, "Come on, get in. It's going to flood, and it's going to take your house away." And he yells back out the house the same thing. God will save me." So guy goes off on his boat. Bzz, goes. Later on, he's now up on the roof of his house, and he's still praying, "God, please save me, save me." Here comes a helicopter. "Hey, get on. The flood is going to take your house away in a few minutes." And he yells up to the helicopter, "God will save me." A little bit later on, he's in heaven, and he comes up to God, and he goes, "Hey, I've been praying all this time. Why am I here? You're supposed to save me." He says, "What do you mean?" "I sent the truck, I sent the boat, I sent the helicopter."
No. What more do you want?
You want me to come down? No. Here's your answers. Take it.
That's true. I felt that turtle was like an angel.
Yeah.
Because he disappeared. I mean, he was there and then he was gone. It was like as soon as I called for help, he appeared. Uh-huh. And it was just as though, you might say magic, but it definitely got me out of the struggle and made me relax and mimic what he was doing and saved my life.
Yeah. No, I love hearing those kind of stories. It's definitely real. I don't care how any people want to pshaw that and go, "Oh, it's not real." These things are real, people. If you choose to believe it, you know what it is. If you choose not to believe it, well, you can live your life in denial. That's fine. There is something else that you did say, though, and actually a friend of mine, a life coach, and we did a show a little while ago, and it was titled, or it is titled, "Are You an Approval Addict?" And you were just touching about that just a couple of minutes ago. Can you expound on that?
What do you mean? Can you say that a little bit more? What do you mean an approval addict?
You were talking about how people are looking for...
Hello?
Hello? Are you still there? Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm still...
Okay.
But it was
great.
Okay.
Let's see. The show is just talking about people that are always looking for approvals. Did you see what I did? Did I do this well?
Self-worth, yes.
Look at the award I got, or look at how the company treats me, and look at how much I've got, or even in the case where a lot of people do these days, look at my new iPhone 5, or look at my new computer, look at my new SUV, and look at what I'm doing here and over there, and it's always saying something to someone to get someone's approval because they don't feel that their own self-worth, their own acceptance of themselves is worth anything.
Right.
They have to have the approval of somebody else to feel validated.
Right. And again, that's being object approval, having objects be the measure of their own self-worth. And when those things are taken away, then that person feels that they don't have an identity anymore. They identify with things outside themselves. And that will always bring you suffering. Mm-hmm. It'll always bring you, because it always changes. You can't manage what other people think of you. Or let's say you're the flavor of the month in the news, and then they go to somebody else, and then you're no longer the flavor of the month. Mm-hmm. I mean, again, you have to go inside to really feel confident, to know who you are, despite whatever happens to you. I mean, for instance, after my son died, and he committed suicide. He had been in the Army. He had been despondent. He had had back pain. He had been on pain-killing drugs and finally took an overdose because he couldn't stand the pain anymore. Well, right after that, I even lost all my money that I was using to live, to have an income. I had nothing. I had no savings. I had nothing. It was all gone. If that had been my only self-approval, I probably should have, rolled in a little hole and died myself. But I started selling things that I knew didn't define me. They didn't identify with me. I needed to exist. I needed to live. So I sold whatever I could, and I was still okay. I was so sad about my son, but I was fine with just letting go of the things because now they were just helping me survive. And I went to live with my daughter and take care of my grandson. So it was a very bleak time for myself, but I managed to get through because I knew how to do the cord cutting. So every day I would still cut my cords and dissolve the way I was looking at it presently, and I'd feel better. I didn't feel 150%, but it made me get through the days and be grateful still for what I had, because my health was more important to me than my things. Mm-hmm. And I knew that I had to keep my health up. And I knew what would happen if I got completely sad or completely angry, and that destroys your organs. If you get angry, you tell the unconscious mind to go release a chemical that bruises your heart muscle. So I didn't want that to happen. So, I would get angry, I would express it, and then I would just let it move out of my body, so as to not keep that poison. And, I'm just grateful that I knew about this by studying the ancient Hawaiian healing, by even studying hypnosis, because hypnosis goes into what the unconscious mind does and how it's guided by the conscious mind, how they're working as a team. And then in Huna, we do it because you want to clear the pipeline to get up to the higher self, which is the one that heals your body. You're trying to clear it. You're trying to be your own rotor-rooter and clear the garage or clear the closet out inside of you so that your desires of healing or whatever they are can reach the higher self. And, that's eventually what I ended up doing.
Yeah. This is the idea of the show here. It's your thoughts becomes your reality. I just call it your thoughts, your reality radio. But in short, that's what you just described. Your thoughts. If my same friend, one that's a life coach, she even says this on her own radio show. She talks about it and she says, I have a friend who, and she's talking about me because I tell her, those days when I'm not feeling happy, and we're talking about just being humans. So this is what we're relating to listeners is, when you're not feeling happy, do you sit there in gloom? Do you go looking for the nearest cigarette or the bottle of beer or whatever your favorite libation is? Do you looking for some way to become happy? Do you feel that you have to buy your happiness? No, you shouldn't feel that you have to buy your happiness. If you're not happy, if you're feeling sad and disgruntled or whatever adjective you want to use to describe that negative feeling, what I do, even in my worst times, and when I'm at my worst, it doesn't always come up to, as you're saying, to give me 100%, but 9% is better than 40%, okay? At least the way that I think, is right. I just say to myself, I repeat it either out loud or in my mind, and the habit that I have developed with this, it normally only takes me about 3 times, and then I'm feeling just the way that I said that I want to be. Actually, I don't say I want to be happy, I just say I am happy. I am happy. I am happy. And you'd be surprised on how you actually feel it, and it's genuine. It's not that you're psyching yourself out. It's what you just said. You're telling your subconscious and the conscious that's working together that I am. Not that I want to be, because they're just going to say, well, when are you going to be? So I am? Oh, you are? Okay, fine. Let's catch up with him. Okay, good. We're there.
No, it's true, because the unconscious is the feeling part of you. It's the emotional part. And if you just have a thought and, try to say it rote, just physical rote, it's you have to have the feeling, just like you say. It's got to have the emotion behind it.
Indeed, definitely. So,
yeah, when I was trying to get well, and I clear the memories out, the feeling I would get would be seeing myself climbing trees again, like I did when I was a little girl. Yeah. And the joy that you have when you climb these trees. I watched my grandson do that. I can't follow him up the tree these days, but I get a vicarious feeling, because you have to have a strong back to go from limb to limb and branch to branch. And so I would get that feeling, that emotion, and that's what the unconscious sent up the pipeline to my higher self, which eventually put down into my physical body, changing the DNA and giving me a back to correspond with the climbing trees. Mm-hmm. Completely healing.
There you go. Definitely. So tell us a little bit about your seminars.
Oh, my seminars. Well, the main ones I do are in Hawaii. I take a client as a private client, and they study the ancient Hawaiian healing. What better place to do it than right there on the island? And we swim in the morning with wild spinner dolphins when they're there, or turtles, all kinds of multicolored fish, or whatever pops in. Mm-hmm. It's the ocean, but it's a wonderful protected bays, and I do a lot of just ceremonies and offerings to the ocean, to ask the dolphins to come in and to play with us and get my clients ready so that they'll be attractive enough that the dolphins would want to come and swim with us. Because you have to be in a playful mood. I mean, the dolphins are repelled by people who are aggressive and angry. They just kind of don't come around. But if you're, if you're fun and you're also in need of healing, they want to come and help, because they see you as a piece of sheet music and they want to put you back into resonance again instead of disharmony. So that's what I do in Hawaii, and that's usually in the summertime. Like, I'm leaving July 17th and get back August 7th from that. And then I just do private sessions here in Santa Cruz of reconnective healing. I also teach Huna. I've had clients fly in from all over the world just, to study the Huna here as well. And I initiate them into, there's 4 different levels of Huna and 36 symbols. So they, get that experience too. It's more for the self-healing that the Huna is. Mm-hmm. The reconnective healing is something we do together. Their higher self, themselves, and me. So it's like a trinity that we do when we do the healing part. And then the reconnection, again, is a 2-day process. And drawings are traced on their acupuncture points, which take them back to an axiotonal system, a new star system in the universe. And that accelerates you back onto your soul path. Whatever your soul came here to do, to guide you, that process of the reconnection helps you to achieve that. And that's what got me to write the book. After I had my reconnection done, it was like a no-brainer. They said, you're going to write a book, and I had no arguments whatsoever. I said, okay. And then they provided me with the help. I had someone who came to help organize me. And for 3 years, that's what we did together. So it was an amazing adventure, I guess, and I'm ready for the next chapter.
There you go. Yeah, I know. A lot of people think that just because you've accomplished this, that's the end. And is going. I always tell people, as long as you're living, it's not the end. I know. I used to like to think every 10 years marked something. Like in my 30s, I had children. In my 40s, I was doing the stunt driving and walking on coals. In my 50s, I was swimming with the dolphins, and in my 60s, it was big things. It was, just big suffering, kind of, losing my son and my mother, and
swimming with whales and writing this book. And pretty soon we'll get to the 70s, and my goodness, who knows what that's going to bring.
There you go. There you go. Just keep living it. Well, we're down to the halfway through the show. I was going to say bottom of the hour. So it's time for us to take our commercial breaks. Please stay tuned. We'll be back with Belinda Farrell. She has a lot more to tell us. And as you know, by now we're doing the slingshot effect. So now you've heard what Belinda is doing and a little bit about how she got there. We're going to let her tell us more. And you're going to find it very interesting, even her little introduction to the CIA. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
I love what Maya Angelou had to say about the power of the spoken words. She said, I quote, "Words mean more than what is set down on paper. It takes the human voice to infuse them with deeper meaning." End quote. And that is the reason I made the decision to put my words into an audiobook. So please check out my spoken words in my new audiobook, Your Life, Your Way. The 10 must-have goals to improve your life. It's now available. You can either go to my website at www.coachingbyria.com and purchase it there. You can also download the book from iTunes by going to the link I provided in the show page, or simply go to the iTunes stores and put my name in the search, Coach Ria Wilkie, and you will be able to download the audiobook from there. And I do thank you all for doing so. And if you like to write a review, please do so. And I'm always grateful to be in service. Thank you.
Hi, this is K. William Spencer of Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio. I'm just dropping by to give you a quick update of a few of my guests for the month of June. Recently, my guest was Lynn Branson, the author of Super Wise Me. And coming up, I have the author that goes by the pen name of Eva Marie Payet. Then we have country music musician Doug Briney, Robert Kennedy III, Lillian Brummett, Sandra Patino, and many more. Please join my guest and me every Tuesday and Thursday evening for inspiring and motivational conversations on personal successes, achievements, and sometimes awe-inspiring transitions. And as always, for current information, visit the website at www.ytyr.tk and the Facebook page, facebook.com/YTYR radio. And remember, think great and have a great life.
Ai noho ana ke akuia I kanai hele hele hia le hia he te tio hua hue taua koko he na kino malui kalani malue hoe he o holu mahi ana ho kanehi kona kahu hoa noa That is an ancient Hawaiian chant. It's one of the most powerful protective chants that I know, and I have it even written out in the book that I wrote, Find Your Friggin' Joy. It's an ancient chant or a prayer to Kane. And what it means is to just arouse us and to awaken us so that we receive the life force from the breath that comes upon us. And it puts us in a state of protection. It removes the darkness that we're feeling and then keeps us in this protected state so that we're free from all the restrictions and we bathe only in the infinite rain of light. And that's exactly what it does to me, and it's helped me when I've been in dangerous situations to chant that, and the danger goes away. So it's a very kind of like having your own ammunition with you.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Welcome back to Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio. Our guest and our vocalist, chanter, is Belinda Farrell. When we had spoken off air before we started the interview, she asked if she could do a chant, and she started into one when we did that, and it's like, wow, she's got a voice, and I don't know if you can feel it, but I feel this when she sings it. She just made me much calmer all of a sudden. But at any rate, we're back with Belinda Farrell, and she is going to tell us now a little bit more about, or a lot more actually, about how she got to where she is and how she even learned this chant and why. So please do start anywhere you want there, Belinda.
Well, I started going to Hawaii in the 90s, and, again, I was like, why am I being sent to Hawaii? Because this was for all this training in hypnosis and NLP, and I was just, in my analytical mind and trying to learn all these things for my practice. And a little bit with trepidation about all the water that was around this island. But I was introduced to the chanting and the hulas around you and the beauty of Hawaii. Your senses are just activated when you're there. And I started to learn how to do the hula, but I was really gravitating towards the drumming because the drummers would play for the hula dancers. And these are ipu hekes. They're gourds that are glued together to make these incredible sounds. And I started to talk to the Hawaiians, and of course I was considered a haole, which means, a white person without breath. That's the name they give to the white people that come on there. But I asked if I could learn the chants, and I kept listening to them and listening to them, and of course they wouldn't teach a haole, So I just wouldn't go away because I had this urgency. It was like deep in my soul that I had learned this before, but I didn't take it seriously, maybe for life or whatever. And finally convinced one of the head Hawaiians there, because I wouldn't go away. I mean, I was like a thorn in his side. And then he said, okay, if it's pono, then I will teach you. And pono means right, if it's right. And so I became a student of his, and boy, it was tough. But I was used to being trained, because when I had to train to be a stunt driver, they would train you until you cried, because you have to get it right or else you die.
Right.
So I didn't mind somebody, correcting me over the sound. Everything had to be perfect. And so I learned. And then once you start chanting and you start, the chant actually comes and it grabs you. And then you and the chant become one. It's not just me chanting. It's the lineage of all the chanters that came before me that are chanting with me. That's why my voice changes, and it's right in the heart where you feel that vibration, where the chant comes from. Because I'm not really the greatest singer in the world. I really don't have that ability, but chanting is it comes from the heart. So that's why you felt differently as well, because it was doing what it says it can do. It was lifting any darkness, any anxiety, and making you feel, in the presence of light and feeling protected.
Indeed. Take us back to you got me thinking about what you just said, and I just lost. Now I lost the drive to ask the question. But okay, we have to get back to it here real quick. Now you got me stuttering too. Any rate, it's okay. It's a wonderful thing. Take us back to the beginning when all of this actually started. Now, I don't have in my mind a starting point, but I know there is something that you started with the CIA, but I know there's something that starts even before that. So by all means, tell us about this, please.
Well, I was raised as an only child into a Catholic family, and they put me in a convent. And I really was accused by the nuns of being too joyful. Yeah, they would call my mother and say, she's just too joyful. You have to have her suffer more. And it was as though I didn't believe that we had to suffer. I thought we were here to be happy. And I just kind of came in with that gene. So I was always a little bit in trouble all the time. And finally, in fact, in the book, I mentioned a story when I was going to confession. And the priest was giving the confession, and I saw a little tear in the screen, and I peeked inside, and I saw the priest reading the funny papers.
Yeah.
And I just thought a little light bulb went on, and I said, "Well, if he's not taking me seriously, I shouldn't have to take myself seriously either." So, I mean, it really just it kind of freed me, thinking, what is this all about? Why do I have to go to confess my so-called sins, my childish sins to this person? But then later on in life, my whole life is about forgiveness, but it's forgiving ourselves. So I thought that was a really interesting contrast. And so anyway, I was always raised with, I had to please other people. I was a people pleaser. And I got married and was married to a doctor, and I was still very curious and got into acting and got into modeling, but it had to be on a time that I was not busy with the house. I almost felt like I was Cinderella. I had to take time away from my chores and duties of the house to go to auditions and try out for things on my own time, because it wasn't very supported. And then after my divorce, let's go back a little bit before that. What got me to Washington, D.C. was a security clearance that had come through from the CIA. I had been interviewed to become an agent in Madrid, Spain, because I knew how to speak Spanish. I had majored in Spanish and English at Berkeley. And they were recruiting, people out of college. And so they started with, your background checks and kindergarten teachers and neighbors. And, it was all pretty much, I forgot about it until the clearance finally came through. I had started having an agent in Hollywood and launching, maybe an acting career there when the CIA called me to come back to headquarters at Langley. And so they're the ones that sent me back to Washington, D.C., and it was like a week of interrogation and tests and just a lot of unpleasantness. It wasn't cut out for me. I wish they had started with that first instead of the other security clearance. If they had started with that, it would have been a no-brainer. We would not have been a good match. But they did it the way they did it, and but at the end of that interrogation process, when I said I'm not going, or I would have probably been dead by now, I stayed in Washington, and I got a job with a senator, and that's where I met my husband-to-be. So it's almost like, this life-defining decision to stay in Washington and not go back to Hollywood affected my whole life. The CIA brought me there, and then I stayed, and then I met my husband and had my children, and then, your life takes another course. If I'd stayed in Hollywood, I don't know what would have happened. I wouldn't be here today, maybe. I don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know.
No, we don't know. Compared to... I want to take a couple of seconds here because you remind me of when, was it back in 2007? I went back to visit my mother. My mother's 94 years old, and she still drives, lives in her house by herself, invites people over, cleans, cooks, everything.
Oh, wonderful.
And there was a reunion going on when I got there, so I went to see the reunion, and I sat down with some people that I had gone to school with and whatnot. And I sat down to have a conversation with them and tell them a little bit about what I had done in my life. Not looking for approval, but just kind of catching up. And they were looking at me like, I have no idea what the heck you're talking about. Now, it's just, I'm not talking about we were talking different languages, but it was almost like we were talking different languages because they couldn't relate to anything that I was talking about.
Yeah. Well, it was like a different language then.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
you have to speak the language in order to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Unless you play music, and music is a universal language. So, or just looking at somebody, when I look at somebody, you can fall in love with that person if you look at them long enough.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you can always find something about a person that you really, if you're that kind of a person anyway, you'll find something about a person that you really like, and it just continues to develop.
Yeah.
But at any rate, going back to Washington, D.C. and California, and the choices that you made.
Yeah.
So tell us more about those and how they ended up getting you to be where you are now.
Well, when I was in L.A., my very first job was Snow White at Disneyland.
Yeah.
And I had always wanted to be a tour guide. I interviewed to be a tour guide to carry the little white flag. And they said, no, you're going to be Snow White. We're going to put the wig on you and blah, blah, blah. So I walked around the park with these 7 ghastly little men who were quite nasty because they were so hot in those costumes. And, it's 110 degrees underneath those costumes. And it's summertime, and you're wearing big velvet dresses and things. Anyway, it was exciting and fun for a while. But I left to go work at ABC, Hollywood, KABC Eyewitness News, and that was kind of life-changing as well because I really wasn't trained as a news reporter, but they had a strike, and I was working in ABC as kind of like a little file clerk, and then I was always going down the hall to check out the news department and got involved with the news and how the YTYR came across. And when there was a strike, I auditioned and got the job to go out on the field and bring in news stories. So it was always like I was just right there at the moment of taking advantage of a situation. It was just, fun. It seemed like fun, and I was adventuresome at the time. And so that gave me a lot of training, in being a news reporter, and which led to my job in Washington for the senator, because I'd had the experience of being, a press person. Mm-hmm. And that was all just very exciting, but I knew I wanted to work in Washington. I wanted to stay there. I really wanted to work in the White House. But then it was the time of Nixon coming in, and I wasn't too enamored with that. Our senator was touted as maybe being a dark horse candidate, and but he did not want to be president either. He wanted to just stay as a senator, and that was Senator Charles H. Percy of Illinois. And he was just a brilliant, wonderful, charming, charismatic person who was just a joy to work with. And Robert Kennedy was alive at the time. His office, we took over his office, and he went upstairs because he then became a junior senator. And it was a really just a wonderful time. It really was, just seeing Bobby coming down and having lunch on the lawn with his dog and his staff. And I was just in love with Washington at the time. Mm-hmm. I would eat my lunch, listening to Senate debates, and it was a very exciting experience. But then I met my husband. We had a courtship for 6 months, and we moved back to L.A., and he became an intern, and I went back to school to get my teaching credential. And Vietnam was in full bloom. So we got shipped because the Navy had paid for part of his medical training. So he owed them 3 years, and so we had to go to Puerto Rico. And I knew how to speak Spanish, so it was a no-brainer there. And then I started teaching school on the base, and that was an adventure in itself.
Yeah.
And then we moved back to LA, and I, again, continued to do some modeling. But still, I'm pretty much, wanting to be a good wife. I guess those were the days of, you just want to be a good wife. And I think when I turned 40, I had my children at 30 and 33, and that was my job, and I loved it. I loved that. But, you just start to feel your spirit is longing for other things other than taking care of a house and the grounds. And that's really what I wanted to get into acting. I loved acting. I did some plays. Same time next year was my favorite role of that wonderful play that Alan Alda did in a movie with Ellen Burstyn. And that at the end of that run that we did that play was the end of my marriage. So that's when I turned 40 and my trajectory went onto another, burst of speed. And then I felt like I had to just make up for all the lost time that I had, the fear that I had of just being on my own. I had never really been on my own. And so that's where I think the script that I was saying to myself, because I always had some back problems. I was born with scoliosis. I had to wear a brace for a couple of years. And I always had some, back aches and things. And I didn't know anything about healing at the time. I just knew I didn't want to take pills. So, it developed into how can I do this in a natural way. And then the firewalks, started doing those and listening to my inner voice saying, wow, well, now what would you like to do? If you can walk on 2,000 degrees of hot coals, what else would you like to do that you haven't done? And what came up was that I wanted to drive a race car. I was just itchy to drive a race car. And I didn't know how to drive a stick shift at the time, so I didn't know where that was coming from, except that I loved racing bikes as a kid. And then that took me to Sears Point Raceway in Sonoma, because Tony Robbins teaches you, and this is a really heavy mantra, that if you say you can't, then you must. And if you must, then you will. You'll find a way. Again, directing your thoughts. Oh, I can't do that, but I must. Okay, if I must, then I will. Then how am I going to do it? So it was like, all right, here's the telephone. I have to find out where I can learn how to drive a race car. And that's what guided me to Sears Point. And I enrolled in the Grand Prix road racing course, which was a 4-day course. I was the only girl. And it was scarier than you can believe, but fun, exhilarating. And half the time you're in the classroom learning the physics of how the car works and how things are executed. Then you go out into the race cars and, just demonstrate it. And I found out that I had some talent. And at the end of the 4 days, they invited me to do a job for Buick and Cadillac in New York for 2 weeks. And after that, I was sold, to say the least. I was hooked, I guess. I had one of my teachers became my partner, and I came back to the racetrack, and they trained me as a stunt driver and developed a whole stunt course for me and put me through every kind of pace imaginable. I mean, we had to do terrorist driving, when they would close the racetrack, and, you'd have to be able to get away from the terrorists and do, reverse 180s and forward 180s. And it was very exciting. But, and it helps today, just being out in traffic.
Not that you have to do any reverse 180s or anything, but yes, I can understand that.
I hope not. But I mean, it's scarier out here in regular traffic because you have nothing that's, planned. You don't know what's behind the wheel, the person next to you. Yeah. At least all of our stunts were well thought out and planned and, negotiated and, much safer. So I did that for about 8 years.
Yeah, for 8 years?
Yeah, about 8 years. I had a thriving stunt driving career and did lots of car commercials and, some TV shows. I didn't want to be away from my children longer than a week or two at a time. So, I didn't do big big long films and things like that. But I worked with fog and snow and no fire, thank God. But I had to burst through snowbanks and burst through blinding fog, blinding fog things, and hit my marks. And I said at Laguna Seca, I remember they had a tortoise. We were test driving the new Lexus cars, and we were doing tandem driving, and I had to test the ABS brakes and come in, at 40 miles an hour, and just within inches stop the car in front of this turtle, this poor tortoise, who would dunk his head down under into his shell, and the director would be right behind the turtle. And then there'd be somebody stand there with another turtle in case I missed.
Oh, God.
And then if I missed, so would the director get a little bit pulverized, too. So we did it fine.
You remind me when I used to sell, was it the Infinity car line? We used to take the Q45 out on the freeway, and I would get up to at least 60 miles an hour, come off an exit ramp, wouldn't slow down, and then hit the brakes, stand on them, and come to a stop.
Yeah.
Very close to, I wouldn't say right on it, because it would make me sound like a stunt driver, and I wasn't. But right on the white line while there was a red light at the top of the hill.
Well, they have to be tested,
Yeah, I would usually scare the heck out of my customers, but...
Oh, yes.
But they were very impressed with the braking system.
I used to take my daughter sometimes to practice, and we had a it was like an SUV, and I was trying, every time I'd see a vacant parking lot, I would think, okay, I can practice here. And one time I just didn't tell her, and I just started doing some 180s. She was screaming, and I finally had to stop the car and let her out. She was not a happy camper with me.
Belinda, we're going to have to wind down the show here in about another couple of minutes, but I think we're definitely going to go do for a second show.
Okay.
But before we go, do you have any words that you would like to inspire our listeners with? Anything from your book, from your life experiences, anything along those lines?
Oh, I just, I love people. I love helping people, and I feel like it's my job or my calling to just help people to be joyful, to really not take life so seriously, because we are all connected. I mean, that's the one thing I've learned in doing this book or doing the work, is that there's not one of us that isn't connected. And I just encourage people to listen to their bodies and listen to nature and see the harmony that's involved in resonating with that tune, with that resonance that's inside of them, and to just again be grateful and do some just some gratitude and self-healing to connect to that joy that's within you. And I just want to help in any way that I can on that journey. I'm just honored to help.
Speaking of helping, and if our listeners have heard, and if you just came in late, I advise you to go back to halfway through the recording and listen to her do a chant. I'm quite sure you will feel it. Do you have a website that people can find you on? Belinda?
Yes, of course. It's www.hunahealing.com. That's HUNA healing, HEALING.com. hunahealing.com.
And they can find all ways of contacting you there, cell phone numbers, whatever,
yes,
right through there.
My cell phone number and Belinda Farrell 44 at yahoo.com is my email address.
All right. There you go. Thank you, Belinda, for being on the show. I'm definitely going to contact you to do another show.
Oh,
and one of these days, probably whenever I get around to doing the what I call, I've got it called that, I haven't done anything with it yet, the YTYR radio shorts. Basically, something, a little thing that I want to throw in just every now and then to do like 5 to 20 minute recordings. and just to talk about a particular thought and just to convey that. So, yeah, we'll talk more about that at another time. But thank you once again for being here, and thank you everyone for being a part of the program. And stay tuned, because I think Belinda and I are going to definitely do another show. We have so much fun talking with each other anyway. So
absolutely. Mahalo.
Yes. Take care, be well, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us here on Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio. Please make a note to join us again on our next broadcast. For more information, visit our website at www.ytyrradio.tk. That's www.ytyrradio.tk. Our theme music is Soul Controlled by B.O. Crew under a Creative Commons License 3.0. See our website for more information.